While waiting in line for a bowl of soup in post-war Harper's Ferry, former Senator Sam Blackwell realized a man was watching him intently. Sam didn't react immediately, instead waiting for night to fall and for the man to head for the outskirts of town. As his watcher reported sighting the senator, Sam killed him. Unfortunately, he'd been too slow to act. The scout had made his report, and the assassin was on his way. I'm the Irresolute Cartographer, and this is the story of Senator Sam Blackwell and how he became a prime target of the enclave. Years before the threats of assassination and the world being devastated by atomic fire, Sam Blackwell came to prominence as a labor leader in Appalachia. He and his friend Raleigh Clay were advocates for the miners of the region facing the slow collapse of their way of life due to technological improvements and burgeoning automation. They managed to broker deals between the workers and the mining magnates such as Hornret Industrial and Garahan Mining that kept the workers on the job and the coal flowing. When Sam ran for the United States Senate, he was so popular with the locals that he won the election with 73% of the vote. He had run hoping to get the chance to help his people from within the halls of power, and in the early days of his tenure he did just that, championing the workers and fighting corruption. In this role as an advocate of the people, he earned himself a lot of enemies, but also a friend deep on the inside. This friend, effectively a whistleblower that Sam only knew as T, began to leak some truly dangerous information to the senator. Automated nuclear missile silos were being installed in Appalachia with effectively endless reloading capacity. The government would give its own people a warning well before the public in the case of a nuclear war. There was an enormous, well-stocked bunker beneath the White Spring Resort that was host to a large bioweapons lab. Taken together, the government wasn't just prepping for a potential war. They were setting themselves up to survive the war and wipe the slate clean on the other side of the conflict. It rapidly became clear to Blackwell that the government wasn't the body he'd learned it was in his civics class. Democracy was just a thin veneer on the edifice of oligarchy. The military and the corporations that supplied it served as the true rulers of the nation. The senator knew he couldn't leak the information directly to the public without both looking like a delusional madman and risking the lives of his wife and daughter. Thus, he reached out to his old friend Raleigh Clay and told him everything he had learned. Thankfully, Raleigh believed his old friend and took these terrifying revelations as a call to action. They both recognized, however, that this would not be the universal response of the public regardless of Senator Blackwell's popularity. Thus, they began to spread what they had learned to those whom they believed they could trust, and the Free States movement was born. Recognizing the danger the nation was courting and seeking to safeguard their families, the members of the Free States began to hunt for a means of protection against the impending nuclear war. T had informed Senator Blackwell of the involvement of Vault-Tec in the construction of the bunker under the White Spring. The Free States knew not to trust the vaults. They began to build their own independent bunkers across the Shenandoah and Potomac River valleys. As their numbers grew, the Free States began to spread their news more openly. The government-supporting citizens of Harper's Ferry, the largest town in the region, did not take these revelations well. They dismissed the Free States as traitorous rabble-rousers, and fights broke out in the streets. Word of the movement began to spread, attracting government attention. Agencies as diverse as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Lasers and Navy Intelligence at Sugar Grove began to investigate. Soon, there were posters throughout the city decrying the Free States movement as communists. Publicly known members faced extreme discrimination, including the refusal of treatment at the Harper's Ferry Clinic. Though those in the movement knew of Sam Blackwell's participation, he managed to keep his affiliation secret until the summer of 2077. The late spring and early summer of 2077 was a rough time for Senator Blackwell. In early June, clandestine visits with neurologist Dr. Rancer revealed the early stages of dementia. Meanwhile, he and Emily Blackwell, his wife of over 21 years, were divorcing. At the same time, relations between the Free States and the average citizens of Harper's Ferry were reaching new lows. Following a night of violence in town that the press labeled the Clay Riot, Raleigh Clay was imprisoned on false charges. Senator Blackwell opened an official investigation into the wrongful arrest of his old friend. This was done in direct opposition to advice from both his Deputy Chief of Staff, Curtis Klein, and even T, who didn't want the senator tainted by public connection to the Free States. Though he was known to have been an ally of Clay's in the old days of pro-labor activism, this was the first public acknowledgement that they were still associating. Given the severe negative public sentiment regarding Raleigh Clay, Senator Blackwell began to face serious backlash. Despite this revelation, through July the senator was generally able to maintain his normal work schedule. He went to fundraising galas, gave speeches at nuclear plants in the capital, and met with his senatorial colleagues. The end of summer would bring with it an end to this normality. A plan to automate the entire state government, known as the Appalachian Prosperity Act, became Ballot Measure 6 in the upcoming November election. Senator Blackwell came out in opposition. When it came to the mining industry, he recognized that such a development was as inevitable as it had been for pneumatic drills to replace pickaxes. In that case, he wanted to slow the process, allowing people time to adjust to the new normal. However, he saw the Appalachian Prosperity Act as a disaster. He asked, "What do the people of Appalachia get from Ballot Measure 6 other than pink slips and empty bellies?" Daniel Hornwright, CEO of Hornwright Industrial, wasn't pleased. His company was responsible for the manufacture of the auto miners, specialized mining robots that were replacing miners across the region. He stood to make even more money if he could provide some of the robots and systems that would replace human government workers. Publicly, he attacked the senator, calling his connection to the Free States a sign that he didn't really care about the people for whom he claimed to advocate. Privately, Daniel contacted his fixer, Harper and told him that he wanted the senator silenced until after the vote on Ballot Measure 6. Rosiak wasn't to harm anyone in this. Daniel simply wanted the senator too scared to interfere until he had what he wanted. Shortly thereafter, the senator received a holotape recording detailing his daughter's daily schedule of classes at VTU. Utterly horrified at what he was sure was the government coming after him for his connections to the Free States, Sam Blackwell raced to Morgantown, picked his daughter up, and departed for his hidden bunker. Having not told anyone where he was going, for a time the disappearances of the senator and his daughter were treated as something akin to a kidnapping. Search parties were even organized to seek them out. That came to an end with an article published by Quinn Carter of the Charleston Herald. In September, shortly after his disappearance, a letter arrived at the paper in a handmade envelope. The author claimed to be the missing senator, inviting Miss Carter out for an interview. When a fingerprint match revealed that it really was from Sam Blackwell, Quinn Carter agreed to the meeting. After undergoing a series of security precautions, she arrived within the senator's bunker and they began to speak. No longer held back by notions of maintaining his public persona as the respectable senator, Sam Blackwell let loose. He revealed that he'd gone to ground to protect his family, namely his daughter Judith, but recognized that he needed to spread what he knew as far and wide as possible. There were so many lives at stake. He spoke of sinister forces at work in the halls of government, arrayed against the people. He urged the people to get off the grid, strike out on their own, and do so as fast as they could if they wanted to survive. The government has no interest in keeping you safe. Skeptical, Quinn asked the senator if he would reveal his sources on the information, and he refused. He wouldn't put their lives at risk. Having done her homework, she then asked Blackwell if his recent visits to the neurologist might have anything to do with his current mental state. He rejected the implication vehemently, noting that people's lives were at stake. Powerful forces were arrayed against the American people. The executive branch, captains of industry, even the Department of Agriculture. The people behind the curtain who truly ran the country viewed the citizens as pawns. The only way for them to win was to get off the board. In closing, she asked about his status as a senator, and he used the opportunity to resign. Quinn returned to Charleston and wrote up the interview. She believed him, or at least was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt while she looked into his claims. When the piece was published, it set off a firestorm. While Sam Blackwell's advocacy for Raleigh Clay had been unpopular, the revelation of his open and unequivocal support for the Free States and his effective secession from the United States was seen as an act of treason. Governor Evans sealed his office and shut down server access to his computer. A special election was organized that would take place alongside the vote on Ballot Measure 6. For his part, Daniel Hornwright was thrilled, especially that Sam had blamed sinister forces in the government, letting him off the hook. He paid Harper Rosiak a bonus in thanks. Meanwhile, the Charleston Herald came under sustained protest and harassment by angry pro-government citizens. Boycotts were organized, and many called for the arrest of Quinn Carter if she wouldn't reveal the senator's whereabouts. In truth, she knew generally where she was when she was doing the interview. She had even recognized both Sam and Judy when they came to get her. As a journalist, she felt protecting her sources was paramount and she refused to cave. Things got so bad that her editor ordered her to get a gun and to be armed 24/7. He rented multiple hotel rooms for for her and told her not to stay in one for more than a night. Though the government considered going and rousting the Blackwells, by mid-October they decided to let them stew for a time. Them and all the other Free Staters who had declared their secession simultaneously and disappeared into their bunkers. In the end, the government wouldn't get the chance to raid the bunkers as, on the morning of Saturday, October 23rd, 2077, the bombs fell. Thanks to the underhanded tactics of Daniel Hornwright, most members of the Free States were safely underground. They wouldn't emerge for a full year and a half. Judith Judy Blackwell had spent some of the first few weeks of her time in the bunker questioning how her life had gone the way it had. She'd been in her final year of medical school when her father had come to pick her up. He had been insistent that she was in serious danger but hadn't shared any proof. She had seen in his eyes that he wasn't going to let this rescue go. With his diagnosis, he wasn't in shape to be in the bunker alone. As October wore on, she hoped that he would come to his senses and they would go back outside again. The bombs falling put an end to those thoughts. When the bombs came down, Judy spent hours listening to the calls of those in need on the radio. Sam wasn't surprised that his warning had gone generally unheeded. In order to supplement their supplies of his medicine, Judy asked her father to write, hoping that the act of writing would help preserve his memory while she searched for a means to brew him some natural alternatives. When the conditions were right, Judy began to explore outside, noting the dramatic plant growth that seemed to be occurring. She soon found that mentats were an excellent medication to keep her father functional, and found a recipe utilizing mutated flowers and fungi that made a good facsimile. Things weren't always easy between them, and Judy was generally more trusting than her father. When she was taking too long to come home from a foraging trip one afternoon, her father followed her path. He observed her speaking with two unknown men. When they parted, he snuck up on them and killed them. She didn't take the news well. This isolation was their standard operating procedure. While the rest of the Free States emerged in the late spring of 2079 and worked to restore Harper's Ferry, the Blackwells remained isolated. As much as Sam might have wanted to keep the outside world away, it would eventually find its way to them. One day in the early 2080s, while Sam was out hunting, he encountered a bat the size of a Corvega sedan. The monster flew straight at him, screeching as he ran for his life. He eventually managed to elude the bat by falling into a ditch, leaving it to scratch the ground above him. When it gave up and flew away, he returned to the bunker, soaked in sweat, covered in mud and bruises. Though she seemed skeptical of his story, Judy gave her father a large gun to carry. Then she saw the bat herself. The wilds around the bunker were getting more dangerous. This danger truly came home in early 2084. In the second week of February, Judy came down with an illness of some sort. Sam didn't know what it was, but he felt that there was something locked in his memories about the disease, maybe something T had warned him about. She got worse so fast. From what he heard on the radio from Harper's Ferry, they were experiencing a similar outbreak. Sam got ready to simply damn the consequences and take Judy to the White Spring for treatment. He was sure that the shadow government would still be in the bunker there, and if anyone had the resources to treat it, they would. They'd execute him, but it was worth that sacrifice to keep her alive. But he was too late. The disease burned through her too quickly. She died February 15th, 2084. Sam buried his daughter on the crest above the bunker and tried to will her memory into never-ending permanence. Over the coming weeks, Sam tried to just keep going, but he started feeling crushed by the loneliness. After years of isolation, he ventured out to Harper's Ferry and began to live amongst the people of the rebuilt town in anonymity. Respectful of his need to stay out of sight, Raleigh Clay gave him a job working in the armory, cleaning weapons. He only ventured back to his bunker when he needed to tap into the reserve of supplies there. Unfortunately, this new normal would not last. One day in Harper's Ferry, while waiting in line for a bowl of soup, Sam noted that one of the newcomers couldn't stop staring at him. He didn't let on that he recognized that he was being watched. That night, he'd followed the man out of town and saw him making some sort of recording. Believing that he was some sort of agent for the force at the White Spring, he killed him. Hoping to throw people off, Sam butchered the man, making it look like some terrible creature had torn him apart. He hid and waited to see what happened. The following morning, the town was in an uproar, terrified of whatever it was that had ripped the man apart. Some of Sam's friends worried that it might even be him in his absence. That night, Sam got confirmation that he had struck true when an invisible drone passed over the town. He could hear the mechanical whirring as it searched for the operative and him. As soon as it was gone, Sam ran back to his bunker to lie low. In order to guard the entrance to his bunker, Sam lay a trail of meat into the cave that covered the entrance. He hoped the scent would lure in some larger predators. With that, he descended the elevator, hoping this would all blow over, vowing not to put himself at such a risk again. Unfortunately, it was already too late. At the bunker under the White Spring, the report of his appearance had already been logged by intel officers. They maintained an enemies list. A list that included, among other names, both Charleston Herald journalist Quinn Carter, whom they had failed to capture, and former Senator Sam Blackwell. At the head of these forces was the former Secretary of Agriculture, Thomas Eckhart. When he heard the report that his old foe was still up and about, he was genuinely shocked. He hadn't expected him to survive so long in his state. While he was counseled to just let it go, Blackwell couldn't be long for this world as it was, he ignored this. Sam had killed one of their operatives, and potentially still had damning evidence of their operations. He had to die. The Secretary dispatched his most effective and deadliest operative, Agent Gray, to carry out the task. True to his reputation, Gray located the bunker with ease. Here, he discovered that Blackwell's lure had served its intended purpose. The cave guarding the dwelling was filled with death claws. Unfortunately, Gray had lures of his own, and the bunker provided all the power they needed to operate properly. With the monsters distracted, he entered the elevator and used a bypass holotape to provide him with access to the depths. Here he found another layer of security, a laser grid. The senator had been quite protective of his office and the accumulated wealth of documentation on his shadowy foes. There was just one problem. Because of the senator's memory issues and the bunker's power issues, Judy had placed instructions on how to reset the power to the grid in plain sight. After cycling the power, Agent Gray entered Sam Blackwell's office and gunned the former senator down. He took the elevator back into the cave. It was only then that he realized his mistake. He had tied his lures into the bunker's power grid. In resetting it to bypass the senator's security, he had reset his own tech. He was dead in seconds. Alright, that's the narrative, but I have a quick note before closing things out. As much as I would have liked to link everything here to specific notes, holotapes, and terminal entries, there was a bit of speculation, specifically how the Free States was founded. We know that Sam Blackwell and Raleigh Clay were old colleagues in the labor movement. We know Sam Blackwell had a source in the government. We know the Free States feared the world was soon coming to an end. My speculations here surround putting these items together. For example, Sam Blackwell sharing his inside information with Raleigh Clay, leading to the birth of the Free States movement. Anyway, let's close things out. Senator Sam Blackwell was a rarity in the Fallout universe, a politician that was actually looking out for his constituents. When he learned the terrible truth about the state of his country, he did everything in his power to save as many people as he could, all while dealing with a divorce and the slow creep of a declining mental condition. He was responsible for the creation of the Free States movement, an indispensable part of the post-war landscape. Without the survivalists, Harper's Ferry would never have recovered, and the Scourge detection system would never have been developed. In the end, he dealt a terrible blow to the enclave in Appalachia, costing Thomas Eckhart his top agent. Even more significantly, his assassination was an example of how extreme Eckhart had become, leading in part to the revolt of his officer corps that destroyed Eckhart and the White Spring Enclave. Even in death, Senator Blackwell was a servant of the people. Alright, I think that'll do it for this video. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public, there's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube, come check it out if you're interested. I'm now a G Fuel affiliate. Use my G Fuel code iCartographer at checkout to get a discount and to support the channel. If you appreciate what I do here and want to financially support the channel directly, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron with Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons, Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Samsung Smart Fridge, Night Spearhead, Electric Head, Hero Cunning, Laced Cake, Oz Born and Bred 73, Clay, Prince Julius, Doc Vanguard Voyager, and Lucas Rumfield for their support. I also want to specifically thank Dark Malcontent for helping with this video's script. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.